Hello and welcome to Femme and Furious, a podcast where pop culture meets a feminine framing. I am your host, Julia Rose Portela, and today we are getting finger banged in the stairway somewhere in Paris. Just somewhere, hopefully. Fingers crossed. Actually, fingers knuckle deep. Okay, before we dive into today's episode, I make myself laugh. Before we dive into today's episode, let me tell you how you can follow and support the pod. You can follow and subscribe on Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. You can also follow along on YouTube for full video breakdowns of each episode. You can also watch video breakdowns on Spotify if you have Spotify. This is a video and an audio podcast. Just a fun fact. I am very Italian and I use a lot of hand gestures. So if you ever just want to see what the hands are doing, because the hands are a co-host on this podcast, you can also follow on socials, on TikTok and on Instagram. That is at Femme and Furious Pod. You can also send an email if you've got thoughts about one Conrad Fisher. Great, me too. You can send those over to femmeandfuriouspod@gmail.com. And last but not least, you can join our free newsletter, Lipstick and Lore. Gives you updates on everything that is happening out in the world, pop culturally, and gives you some behind the scenes content. And it's great. It's a good newsletter. It's a fun time. Okay, before we dive into today's episode, let's talk about a couple of things. First and foremost, we are getting a movie. So this is not the last of, I almost just said The Last of Us. Whoa, it's The Last of Us Day, by the way, that I am recording this. So The Last of Us Day being very similar to another show that we're covering, Stranger Things. Stranger Things Day being the day that Will Byers got taken. The Last of Us is the day that they have their outbreak of their pandemic. So happy Last of Us Day. It's the day that I'm recording. This is not the last of The Summer I Turned Pretty that we will see. We have a movie coming. As far as we have gotten from news from Jenny Han, the movie hasn't even been written yet. Like the screenplay hasn't even been written. So we're probably looking at 2027 for a movie date. Earliest, probably like mid to late 2027, I would think. So that's first and foremost. Also, because this is the type of podcast that we are, I have not listened to it. Not because I am against audio erotica, but because I am subscribed to Dipsea, which is very similar to the app that we're about to talk about, which is the Quinn app. And Quinn app tends to have like a lot more TikTok creators on there. Chris Briney is obviously an actor. He's not a TikTok creator. But if you are thirsting for some more Conrad, Chris Briney has now been typecasted into a role where he is just in love / in lust with his brother's person. So the book on Quinn, by the way, Quinn is an audio erotica app, if I didn't mention that already, is called Hidden Harbor. I haven't listened to it. I have heard a lot of clips on it on the internet. I'm not gonna lie. I think Conrad's real hot in the show. I don't know how much I'm thirsting for Chris Briney in real life. It's nothing against him. It's just an age gap. I'm not ready to be a cougar yet. It's just not my thing. So anyway, that's out there in the world if you would like to give that a listen. Speaking of Chris Briney, he has also announced that he is engaged to his longtime girlfriend, Isabel, and she is pregnant. I've seen 2 videos going around on the internet. One is that the movie is coming out on Christmas. Okay, which maybe we'll get like a little clip or a teaser on Christmas because of the way that this episode ends, but that's fake. That's not true. The movie is not coming out on Christmas, and as of right now, there has been no official news about anything related to The Summer I Turned Pretty coming out on Christmas. So if you see that floating around on the internet, it's not true. The other thing is, I have seen like a couple of AI videos of Lola Tung's like response to Chris Briney's engagement, and those are also not true. There is no official statement. She has not said this. There is no like real video or interview or accredited source that can confirm that this is true. It is just AI. It is really fantastical, and you can tell it just doesn't even sound like anything that she'd say. So if you see that going around on the internet too, that is also not true. I just wanted to put that out there here because it really puts a damper on what is actually just good art and good acting, and makes people's fan fiction in their head just bloom out on the internet in a way that is really contagious and rage baity and gets clicks. That's why. If you have fantasies about two actors together because they have really good on-screen chemistry, just go download Wattpad like a fucking normal person and don't plug it into AI and use an actress's voice to like create your own scenario about what you wish that she would say because you wish that these two people would get together because their characters are together. I don't know. That's just one girl's opinion. Me, I'm the one girl. Okay, let's get into today's episode. I'm really excited to dive into it. I'm sorry it's a little bit late. I was trying to collaborate with a creator who does a lot of the Summer I Turn Pretty content online. I'm hoping that we'll be able to do another episode where maybe we'll do a mailbag together. So I'm not going to do a mailbag for this content for the Summer I Turn Pretty yet because we've been going back and forth and our schedules just weren't aligned. And I was like, all right, I'm just going to put the episode out and we'll go from there. Anyway, sorry this is late. We'll talk about the schedule for the rest of Stranger Things and stuff at the end of the episode, okay? Let's dive into our chic peek. This is a spoiler warning for the books. Not much can be spoiled, really, from the books anymore. And not much can be spoiled from the show anymore because if you're here listening to this episode, you have seen the entirety, hopefully, of the show in its completion. So this is the last episode. Then we have a movie coming out. Likely, we can assume that the movie will be about their marriage and maybe catching up with what everyone else is doing. But that's what Jenny Hanna said. Like, there's still something that we haven't seen Belly do that we want to see her do. So I'm assuming that we will get marriage, perhaps kids, even in that movie experience. But I'm thinking the movie is going to be like their wedding and what that will look like. I don't know. Anyway, it's great. Can't wait for it. So let's dive into our synopsis. The name of this episode is At Last. It is directed by Jesse Peretz. It is written by Jenny Han and Sarah Kukserka. Here's the synopsis. Belly's in Paris when Conrad shows up like a literal walking plot twist. They wander around the city, doesn't make any sense. They share confessions, really cute, and they almost get together, but then Belly panics and lets him go. But in Jenny Han's world, we live by rom-com rules, and they apply here as Belly runs to the train station, declares her love for Conrad, and finally chooses him. Somewhere back in Cousins, if we even care about this part of the story, Jeremiah redeems himself, Stephen and Taylor plan their future, and the season ends with everyone being happy at last. So let's dive into our Femme Frame, where we cover key feminist theories, herstory, cultural context, and more. Is it weird to say that my favorite part of this episode is that Belly declares that she has to pee after sex to avoid a UTI? Anyone? Okay, it wasn't my favorite part of the episode, but you know, it was like it was up there. Can we talk about how no one teaches women about post-sex care? Sure. We all grew up reading Cosmo, or if you were a teenager and you read Cosmo Girl, same thing. Cosmo gave us 58 tips on how to blow his mind in bed. And forgot about the part where you're probably going to blow your urinary tract to hell if you don't pee right after you have sex. Honestly, the greatest feminine rebrand of all time is not a post-coital cigarette, even though in this episode we are in Paris and that would be totally acceptable. But it is snuggling and a solid pee. Today we are diving into the routines that no one has ever explained to us as women. The ones that keep you healthy, that keep you sane, and honestly, the ones that keep you feeling like the goddess you are, babe, even after hours of devotional sex, if Belly and Conrad are our standard. And that is why it is so important that we get to see what Belly does here, even though she is really just copping out to go take a moment, take a breather, and gather her thoughts. She really is also peeing. And this is the #1 gold standard feminist self-care ritual that you can have after sex. It is peeing immediately. Like, do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Just get up, leave your man or woman, but mostly this is heterosexual. Sorry. Leave your man and go pee. Here's why. Not a doctor, just a podcaster. However, podcasters have solved murders, so I feel that my minimal knowledge on this topic, but lived experience and tons of research that I've put into this week's Femme Frame allow me to speak on this freely. When you're having penetrative sex, again, not a doctor, bacteria gets pushed up towards the urethra. And because women's urethras are much shorter, it's like a slip and slide straight into infection land. A UTI is basically bacteria saying, oh, hi, I live here now, and I live here rent-free. Peeing within about 30 minutes helps to flush that bacteria out. Again, not a doctor. This is not medical advice. I am not a doctor. I'm just a podcaster. This isn't just girl mythology. Science happens to back this up by people that are doctors and really do study this stuff, not for their feminist podcast, but for scientific and health purposes. A study in the Journal of Clinical Microbiology showed that women who peed right after sex had nearly half the risk of recurrent UTIs. Half, as in split down the middle. That's not just a life hack, that is thriving. That is a survival trick in the wild. But what else can you do to help your mind, body, and spirit after sex? Number 1, hydrate like your life depends on it. Unless you are a professional starfish, sex is cardio. Your body loses fluids, multiple. I'm not mature enough to do my own podcast. Your body loses fluids, okay? Your blood sugar dips, your hormones are in chaos, and hydrating helps a lot. Chug that water like it is the morning after Coachella and you are hung over as fuck. Your kidneys will thank you. Do some gentle cleanup, but no harsh soaps and no douching, according to my research. Vaginas are self-cleaning ovens, according to every naturopathic person on the internet. And soap just screws with your pH balance and kills all of the good bacteria. Protect the commune. But you do you, babe. And again, I'm not your doctor. Ask your doctor. Your vagina might be different than the vaginas that I've read about on the internet. Have some post-sex snacks, okay? It's like getting Taco Bell when you're drunk. There's just something about it that hits different. And last but not least, check in emotionally. Aftercare isn't just physical, especially after casual sex. Not sure if what Belly and Conrad did can be considered casual, but fine. Or if you're with a new partner, you can ask yourself, how do I feel? And allowing yourself to check in. Journaling, cuddling, even a meme sending debrief with your closest friends counts as emotional care afterwards. Revolutionary sex is safe sex, and safe sex means emotionally too. We thank Conrad Fisher for showing us postcoital snuggles and check-ins. These are all just tips that I've learned along the way. And if you're listening to this right now in this moment in time, we are just a few short days post-rapture that didn't happen. And I'm thinking the reason why I didn't rapture is because clearly I am a sex fiend. Can I say that on the internet? Is any of my family listening? Even if they're not, this is what makes me furious. Why did no one teach us this stuff? Why was the entire focus of sex ed either A, don't get pregnant, or B, don't let him come too fast? And I'm not saying that those were the exact words that my teacher used, but the subtext was there. There was nothing that actually helped about our health, our aftercare, or our well-being. And you know what? My sisters are in high school right now, and I can tell you, nothing's changed. This is where the patriarchy shows up in medicine too. UTIs are one of the most common infections that women get, and doctors often dismiss the pain. Some women wait months, even years, for proper treatment. Meanwhile, Viagra is advertised during football games like it's a fucking Gatorade, and that tells you everything you need to know about the priorities of the world that we live in right now. So post-sex care isn't just hygiene. It is rebellion. It is saying that my pleasure matters, but so does my recovery. And that is important in this world. If you would like to go deeper, like Conrad Fisher did to Belly here, Planned Parenthood has amazing guides. Can't recommend it enough. Dr. Jen Gunter's The Vagina Bible is basically scripture on this. And Emily Nagoski's Come As You Are is incredible for understanding the emotional and psychological layers of aftercare. And because this is Femme Furious, I want to hear from you, my lovely audience. What is your most iconic post-sex ritual? Do you journal? Do you order Taco Bell? Do you immediately start Googling if your situation is toxic? All of those things are okay. Just let me know. This is a judgment-free zone. But the moral of the story is that you deserve orgasms, you deserve the oxytocin highs, but you also deserve really good health and really good aftercare. So pee after sex, hydrate, feed yourself, check in with your soul, and share this episode with your best friend who keeps getting UTIs because of that dusty guy that she keeps sleeping with, and she thinks that peeing after sex is optional. All right. let's dive into our sleigh by sleigh. I have this broken down into sections. We are going to start with Conrad. It's going to go through the episode like with the beats of Conrad. We're going to go into Belly, and in Belly's section, we are going to home in on her relationship with her and Conrad, okay? And then we have Jeremiah, and then I kind of have like all of the other side characters who are pretty much wrapped up in other episodes. So first and foremost, let's start with the way the episode opens. Episode opens with one Conrad Fisher sitting on the stoop, sees Belly. My heart was just so elated for him. And then I was afraid that when he saw her with Benito, he was going to lose his nerve and leave, and that somehow Belly would see him and catch him and run up to him, and that this would sort of be proof. This was happening in my brain really, really fast before anything even happened. That this was going to be proof to her in some capacity that he hadn't really changed. That's not what happened. I was really proud of him. He grabs his bag, he walks up to her, and immediately is like, hey, hi, I love your hair. When we first meet Conrad in season 1, he tells her, I liked you better with glasses. Then he kind of like ruffles her hair a little bit. And Belly goes, yeah, well, I like me better without them. And in this moment, we know two things. Right from the first episode, from the very first time that we see Belly and Conrad interact together. The first is that he loved her way before she ever had a glow up. And number two is that Belly has changed, that something about her is different. Consciously or unconsciously, it throws him off. And right here, by Conrad acknowledging to Belly in Paris that he likes her hair, we are getting an echo of that very first moment of them together in season 1, episode 1, only this time Conrad is acknowledging that he sees that she is different and he likes that she's changed. I think so much of the journey with season 1 for Conrad is not just that his mom is sick and this is a part of where his emotional repression is coming, but that his feelings for Belly, as he describes earlier in the season with Agnes, where he's like, it was always there. It was just that it like was a light switch that got flipped on. I don't think that's exactly what he says, but something like that, where he's like, it was always there. He even says it to her later. He's like, you were always a precious person to me. He always had this love for her. And I think it's when you realize in that moment, and I can remember with my first love too, like the distinct day, even like the distinct moment where it switched over to me from being like, this is a person I love and care about, to like, I think I'm in love with this person. And we're talking about young love. They've never been in love with other people. So when he's feeling all of this for the first time in season 1, it's a vulnerable space for him. And I think this vulnerability is something that he just really couldn't deal with in season 1. And then his grief continues to compound, and he's got his panic attacks and all of that stuff. He's done so much growth that from basically the time that he tells her he loves her and he's like, I'm not going to pretend for you anymore, we see a side of him that is so vulnerable and so open and so raw. And it really works. And it's what allows Belly to be vulnerable as the episode continues to go on too, and let her own walls down. I love that. So they go on this whole escapade through Paris. It doesn't make any fucking sense. I probably have a note about this somewhere later in like my hot girl hot takes, but it doesn't make any fucking sense. Like they're at the Louvre, they're at Versailles, like it just whatever. But yeah, okay, whatever, fine. So that's the thing they do. They want to show us the greatest hits of Paris. I love that he tells her though that he has spent a lot of time imagining her life and that he wants to see Paris through her eyes. And this is really why he's there. I think he not only wants to tell her that he loves her and that he's wondering if she could still have feelings for him, but I think he genuinely does want to answer some questions for himself. He has this vision that he tells us later, like, I thought maybe you ran away to Paris because I sort of ran away and put myself into exile when I went to California. And I think he means it when he says, I spend a lot of time envisioning you here, and I would like to see what is important to you. I would like to see how you spend your time. I would like to see what your life is like. And I think he means that because I think it's something tender for him and something that he's going to be able to hold on to no matter how this trip and experience goes for him. So his vulnerability right here in this moment, again, leaves space for her in their next scene where the two of them are on the rooftop and she can finally open up and tells him that oftentimes she would go up there and think of him and the way that he talked about the Pacific Ocean. Then we see later on, now again, these are just the beats that I noted for Conrad and for what is happening between the two of them. Conrad looking around her apartment feels like one of the most important moments because he is recognizing that this person is different. He's been in her room in Cousins so many times, been in her room probably, in Philadelphia so many times. But this is the first time that he's really experiencing this new version of her. And he's been writing her, but she hasn't really written back. So this is the first time that he's really getting to see Belly in Paris with the curtain pulled back. He gets to see pictures. He sees her in Benito. He sees her with her friends. And then he picks up this book called Les Années by Annie Ernaux. This is a book that translated to English would be called The Years. And the story is somewhat autobiographical, or I suppose it is autobiographical, somewhere between autobiographical and memoir. It is Annie's story of her own journey and her experience of culture in France, living in France, from post-World War II to about the early 2000s. It dives into how she's evolved and how society has evolved. And obviously this is poignant and relevant for Belly because this is a nod that not only is she getting better at French, she's reading a fully French book, not just a book like The Hunger Games, which we see her reading in season 2. She's reading it in French because it's easy to understand because she's already read the book. But it's also important because this is her. This is her journey through the years to where she's gotten to now, to this person that she gets to be now. He sees these photos of her and Benito. Obviously, he's saw her get off of Benito's little moped earlier, so he's kind of like, is she in a relationship with this guy? Okay. And then he sees Junior Mint, and we get this flashback of him at the carnival from his POV, because we've gotten it in season 1 from Belly's POV, where she talks about how Conrad won her Junior Mint, but he really only gave it to her as a consolation prize because he wanted to go and talk to Angie, which is the girl that was working at the carnival booth. It is important that we get this scene because in the books we have a letter from Conrad that says that he spent so much time and money. He's like, I spent like $40 or $50 trying to win Junior Mint. I spent all summer and all this money trying to win Junior Mint for her. And so in getting this scene, we really get to see that Belly is an unreliable narrator because she is so afraid of how big her love for Conrad is. And it is so important to know that this was about her, that he played this game for her, had nothing to do with Angie, so that he could win her the bear. And then she walks out. He says, you look really beautiful. He's so taken by her. 10 out of 10, no notes. He clocks that they also call her Isabel. As soon as he walks in and sees her with her friends and they all start calling her Isabel, he immediately refers to her as Isabel to her friends. He says, how do you know Isabel? He's not holding her to her past self. He's not holding her to Belly. He's not holding her to the person that he knew. He is recognizing and acknowledging just by saying, how do you know Isabel? Even though she's not there to acknowledge that she has changed and that he is accepting the change. Now, we get the marijuana scene. Again, I'm jumping around because I'm kind of going through like the beats of each character. We get the marijuana scene and the callback here is so good. Do you memorize every little thing I've ever said? And then he immediately, Conrad Fisher, immediately says yes and then passes the joint. And to be honest, I really thought about this and I was like, why does he pass the joint? What is the deal about this? And it took me a couple of times of watching it to be like, if we're going to flashback to season 1, the entire season, she basically is like, stop smoking, don't smoke. If you're smoking, I'm smoking. And so I really think that he passed on this joint because he's proving to her that he listens to her, that when she's asking him to smoke all those seasons ago, he stopped smoking. That was it. Conrad admitting that he sent himself into exile is absolutely fucking heartbreaking. It made me want to cry, and I love him. Conrad also admitting that it wasn't on Belly to keep their family together is the beginning of what she needs to hear in order to accept her full love for him. Conrad also bringing it back to the moon. I like being under the same moon as you, throwing back to their phone calls in season 2 where they were really developing their relationship. They were really getting to fall in love. And that little romantic sort of nod to the moon and being under the same moon is really nice. And then last but not least, my little bullet points for Conrad Fisher. And again, we will catch up with Conrad and his story with Belly in Belly's section, which is coming next. My last little tidbit about Conrad here is that when Conrad says he wouldn't expect her to change her plans, he means it. He respects her. He is proud of her. This person that she has grown into, he's curious about her. He's invested in her. Asking her, like, do you want me to call you Isabel now? Is so important. He doesn't hold her to who she was. He says, I wouldn't expect you to change your plans for me. He means it. He means this. He is not saying, this is, by the way, after they sleep together. Now that we've slept together, I'm expecting you to change all of your plans. If anything, he's thinking, we've just slept together. I will change my plans for you. That's how in love he is. Anyway, Conrad Beck Fisher, everybody. Okay, let's go to Belly. This is my first note. The tan outfit is so slay. I don't know what even to do. Lola Tongue is so hot. So that's where we're starting with Belly. Belly also admitting to Conrad in the scene where they're talking together on top of the rooftop. She says, you sound like your 10-year-old self, is basically her saying, oh, you sound like the guy that I fell in love with. I also love that she extends the invitation to him when she recognizes that all these things that she thought were digs were actually compliments. So when Conrad says, oh, what did our moms call you? Like our feral little alley cat. And she's like, that wasn't a compliment. And he's like, yeah, it was. You're scrappy, always go after what you want. You're competitive, especially with yourself. Like, he sees the best in her, and he's sharing with her right now that all of these things over the years that have compounded in her head that have been proved to her that Conrad cannot love her because of X, Y, or Z reasons. He tells her in this moment just by saying, oh, you are our feral little alley cat. She's like, that wasn't a compliment. He's like, no, it was a compliment. And this is where she starts to really melt like butter, because she recognizes that maybe what she thought was true isn't true anymore. And this starts to unweave the fabric of that for her and really solidify that Conrad wasn't just saying this stuff all these months ago, a year ago, when she was getting married, that maybe he still means it. Maybe this is genuine, and that this is something that she can start to see in him. The look that Conrad gives Belly when she says, God, no, if anyone's the villain, it's me. This is when she's sitting next to Benito at the restaurant. You can just see in their eye contact the weight of that statement. She believes it to be true. And he holds her stare, and he just so subtly shakes his head at her. His brows furrow a little bit, and he just very, very subtly shakes his head at her. And again, this is where she can start to open up and warm up, so that when they have this conversation later and she says, I'm the one that broke your family apart, he's like, no, you weren't. You weren't even responsible for holding it together in the first place. That shouldn't have been put on you. This is where that starts. That conversation starts here in a glance, and I love it. When all of her friends end up asking why Conrad is there, Belly immediately says, oh, well, he had a conference, and Conrad kind of cuts her off and then corrects her and says, well, that is true. I do have a conference, but no, I changed my flight because I actually wanted to see her. He is making it clear. He's not giving her an escape route, which is what he's done in the past, where he'll, maybe have an intention to do it one way and then sort of let her think that it was something else. Last episode, he says, to be clear, I think about you all the time. In fact, you're pretty much all I think about, in case that wasn't clear. He says it twice in 2 lines. So he's being clear again here. He said it when they were in the kitchen. He said, I'm not pretending for you anymore. And he fucking meant it. And so even now, he's like, no, we're not going to be confused about this. Sure, I do have a conference in Brussels, but I'm here for Belly. I wanted to see her, and I wanted to bring a little bit of cousins to her, and it's really fucking endearing. I also just love exes getting along, exes being friends, exes being able to move past their relationship here, because it was a fling for Belly and Benito. So we get this shot of Belly kissing Conrad on the cheek, and in the background is Benito snapping a picture of Belly kissing Conrad on the cheek. And I love that, and I hope that he gives her that picture, and I hope it exists somewhere in her apartment. Then, it doesn't really say it, but we can flash back again to season 1, where Belly says, I've wished for Conrad every year on my birthday. I've always wished for you on my birthday. She tells him, I've always wished for you on my birthday. Belly wishing for Conrad every year on her birthday and then finally having him here in front of her while she's making a wish. And she sort of flicks her eyes to the side thinking about like, what am I going to wish for? Because every year she's wished for Conrad and now Conrad's here. She kind of looks down at the candles and then she looks back up at Conrad and then blows the candles out. It was kismet. It was perfect. It was a perfect shot. Then we get the two of them down by the Seine and they are dancing. He says, do you remember the last time we danced? Prom, not my finest moment. And she says, I was such a brat about it. I had this whole vision of what I thought it was going to be. I thought we would dance all night. I thought we would go back to the hotel. I thought that we would, Conrad is like, make love. And she's like, yes, Conrad, I thought we would have sex. Thought that moment was really great. Then we get Belly admitting that she was homesick and that when she was homesick, she would read his letters because to her, he is home. When he asks her, have you moved on? And she kisses him and then she says, come home with me. I was fucking gagged when I watched this. I think this is one of those scenes that just like when you think about a scene that shapes pop culture, when you think about a scene that is infamous, like there are a few that I can think of from Friends. There are a few I can think of from Gilmore Girls. There are a few I can think of from the OC. This is just like one of those scenes. I feel like when people ask about this show and they're like, what do you remember about it? This is the scene. This is it. This is the epitome of what people will talk about when they talk about this show. She kisses him. She says, let's come home. The cab scene is so hot. Shut the fuck up. These two people have been starving for each other. I don't know if you have ever been in a cab or an Uber. No one takes cabs anymore. I don't know if you've ever been in an Uber making out with somebody. And I'm going to tell you right now, I was so in love with this guy that I worked with. And we were seeing each other. And it was not really a situationship. I think it was pretty defined. But we worked together. And then after a few months, he kind of was like, called it quits. And I was despondent because I was in love. Like I was ready to fucking sell my soul for this man. I just thought he hung the fucking moon. And then I look back on it now, like 33-year-old me looks back on 23-year-old me. This was like 10 years ago. And I'm like, not really for you. You would have been really unhappy. I'm going off on a tangent right now. I'm sorry. Anyway, I was in love with this guy when I worked in education. I worked in special ed. I was so motherfucking in love with him. And we dated for a little while and it fizzled out. And it had been like a year. And all of a sudden one night, we were at a happy hour for work and it was like literally like a year and a half later because I was 23 when we dated and I was turning 25 when we went to this happy hour. Slid his hand up my thigh. I kind of like squeezed into the bar next to him. He was sitting down and he kind of like slid his hand up my thigh. And I was like, surely I am getting just a little bit buzzed because like I must have imagined that or that like must have been a mistake. Maybe he was grabbing his phone out of his pocket. But then he kept like making eyes at me. And then I went up to the bar again and he kind of like grabbed my ass. And I was like, okay, well, I didn't make that up. Like that's real. So I was like, okay, it's going down. We are going to fuck. And that's what happened. The entire night we were out with our coworkers and then sort of like the older group of our coworkers left. And as they left and we were transitioning to another bar, we were kind of bar hopping around town, he pulled me into an alley, pushed me up against a brick wall and made out with me. And I was like, okay, well now it's really going down. And meanwhile, like I look back on this and I'm like, you want to know what? 33-year-old me would be like, you're a fucking loser. What do you think? Like you break up with me and now we're just going to make out. Anyway, but at the time I was so thirsty for him. So we end up getting into a cab and we were going back to my apartment, which was probably like 25 minutes away, but I was trashed and he was trashed. We were making out like this in the back of the car. Like I was not seatbelted in. Our Uber driver was fucking amazing and stopped and got condoms for us. Not for us, like we paid for them, but stopped so that we could get condoms. It was not on our space. I think he was having a great time just like watching us. The exhibitionist in me is like, I'm sure we put on a great show because it was probably as theatrical and dramatic as this. Conrad and Belly in the back of the fucking cab is two people who were starving for each other. They were 5 years in the making for this kiss. So I was happy to see it. Then we get the staircase shot. We get first and foremost the slutty little watch and she kind of grabs the slutty little watch's wrist and puts it up her dress so that he can finger her. And then we get this incredibly artistic shot. It was so beautiful of her leaning over the edge of the balcony. Again, people are like, this isn't realistic. I don't care. I would do this shit. This is the type of shit. I hope one day when I die and I go to heaven and I have to replay the moments of my life, I hope that somebody finger bangs me in the stairwell of a Paris staircase and it looks like this and I get to rewatch this moment. That is my hope. And I'm moving to Paris, so there's like at least a 50-50 chance that this may happen to me. And if it does, I'm sure you will be hearing about it on this podcast. Then it goes into the apartment. We see her unbuckle his belt. And I have never wished more in a moment for a show to be owned by HBO or Stars. I was just like, if this was HBO or Stars, they would be fucking. We would get nudity here. Anyway, we didn't. It's a little weird. I get it. What we do get is one Conrad Fisher not letting her take off her clothes and saying, I want to do it. 12 out of 10, no notes. And then we get this, shot where she rolls on top of him. She climbs on top of him. And you can just see in his face, go back and watch the scene and then watch his face as she climbs on top of him. He is in disbelief that he is getting this opportunity right now. Disbelief. And then they fuck. Okay. And then we get this next scene of them after they're kind of like holding hands. She's laying on his chest. It's very cute. It's very cuddly. And she tells him, I used to wish for you for every birthday. And then he says, now you're stuck with me forever. And you can just see the weight of this land for her. And this reminds me of when she finds out that Jeremiah cheated and he said we were on a break and she goes, if I knew we weren't broken up, you should have known that we weren't really broken up. And he's like, well, how was I supposed to know that? And she's like, if I knew it, you should have known it. And this just like subtle communication that happens in a relationship, these things that are not necessarily spoken out loud, but just understood between two people. You can see the weight of this land with her. This moment between Conrad and Billy where he says, well, now you're stuck with me forever is an unspoken, universally understood moment between the two of them because them having sex, them getting together for him, and she knows this, and for her too, and she knows this too, but she's discovering it along the way. Them getting together and having sex that's it. There's no other people. We are not doing this anymore. We are not playing around. We are getting back together. We are going to do this right. We are going to be together. It is not spoken. It is universally understood. For her to sleep with him and not be willing to get back together when she knows and he's proven time and again that this is how he feels about her would literally be cruel. But the thing that is the most cruel is that she cannot accept her feelings because she is so afraid about their feelings for each other not being rooted in reality. So when she asks him, what do you think is happening here? It comes out as persnickety, but I think the question is actually genuine because she's not ever been confident about her feelings about Conrad. She's always been insecure about it. And she is insecure that she does not think Conrad could love her the way that she loves him. She is afraid, genuinely, of how much she loves him. So when he says, do you not love me anymore? She goes, I have always loved you. That's the problem. And then we get this admission of what has always been underneath the current for her. What if you only love me because that's what your mom wanted and then your mom died? And if you scroll back in the feed and you listen to a couple of episodes ago, I talked to you guys about how this happened to me, how my ex had been with me. We had been together for a fair amount of time, and then his father passed away, and there was this like almost obsession about wanting to get married or elope or get engaged and all of this stuff. And at some point it just clicked in my head like this doesn't actually have anything to do with me. This is a manifestation of his grief. And so I understand where Belly's coming from when she says this. And I know that people that are watching the show that have seen it since season 1 are like, that can't possibly be a fear that she's having. That can't be real. But it is when you're actually in a scenario like that. And I really resonate with it. And I honestly really commend her for bringing it up here because her entire relationship with Jeremiah was forged around Susanna and was forged around Susanna's death. And the fact that she is afraid that this may also be true for Conrad, that Conrad might be just a copy and paste of what she had with Jeremiah. She could tolerate it with Jeremiah. Knowing this in the back of her mind, knowing that Susanna was a part of what forged them together, she could tolerate that. But her love for Conrad is so deep and so vast, she cannot bear the idea that this might not be real for him. And that's why it is so emotional for her. And then we get this incredible line, I've changed everything about myself, and the one thing that stays the same is that I love you. She is his constant, he is hers. Then she says, I'm sorry, I wish I could be sure, but I'm just not as sure as you are. And he says, I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry that this happened. Then he gets dressed and he leaves and he goes to catch the train. And this is an echo back to season 1, where in episode 4, they are going to kiss. And then in episode 5, she confronts him about it. And she says, hey, can we talk about last night? Like, we almost kissed. And he's like, did we? I don't know. I was so drunk. And she's like, really? Like, that's what you're going to do right now? And he's like, okay, fine. We almost kissed. Like, what about it? And she was like, are you serious right now? And he's like, listen, you know I think about you. You know I do. But I just can't. And I'm sorry. And she storms off. Belly's like, I'm not waiting for you anymore. And she storms off. And now we get this like echo of that here where she says, I'm sorry. And he says to her, I'm not sorry. He continues to prove that he'll be vulnerable for her and with her. Then she gets the picture from her mom, happy birthday, Belly, and she sees her little self, what we call in my household, little 3me. And one day I'll tell the little 3me story. It's not for today, but in my house we call it little 3me. So she gets her little 3me picture and she can finally forgive herself. She's has this inner dialogue where she's like, what was so wrong with that girl? She followed her heart. She did what she wanted. She was courageous. And she forgives herself in this moment for all of it. She forgives herself for everything that's happened with Jeremiah. She forgives herself for everything that happened at the funeral. She forgives herself for everything that has happened afterwards in the aftermath of her relationship with Jeremiah. And only then, only when she can love herself enough to say, I forgive myself and I see who this girl is to her core. I have brown hair, I have brown eyes, I have brown hair, and I love Conrad Fisher. Only then can she finally choose Conrad. Now, I love that the symbolism is that she arrives to Paris, she loses her bag, she has an air tag in it called Belly. She's traipsing around Paris, chasing this bag, trying to find herself. Then we catch up with her in real time where she's found herself. She's finding herself. She's found. She's become a new person. She's evolved. She's transitioned. She's born again, right? She is the phoenix risen. So now we get this metaphor of her running through Paris. It's the same outfit pretty much. It's a white t-shirt and jeans. She doesn't have a bag on. I don't know. People are like, what about her phone or whatever? She obviously gets changed. She probably has their phone. Okay. You can now have a digital wallet on your phone. Not sure if you've ever heard of anything called Apple Pay, but probably that. You also, by the way, can have your Metro card on your phone. It's an app on your phone in Paris. So just saying, she probably had her phone. She probably did have her phone. And that's probably how she got around and did all of this stuff. Anyway, just to debunk what everyone was saying online. She now gets to run through Paris and she's found. Now she has to go find her other half. And she's looking for her forever. Her showing him the necklace, because the necklace kind of gets turned around and then she pulls it forward and he just like gently touches it. Prime. Love it. Also, we'll just say like her running here to out of the woods and then when she finds him, it just like cuts off and she says, is this sea taken? If there are infinite worlds, I choose you in every one of them. I choose you of my own free will. Then we get the two of them in Cousins at the end and then we see the Christmas album, all that good stuff. Okay, yada yada. Let's talk about Jeremiah. Briefly, I love the direction for Jeremiah, but I hate the writing that got us here. It is not Jeremiah's character's fault that the writing was fucking lazy. Here are my notes very quickly about Jeremiah. All of a sudden with Denise, when she is growing and evolving and gets a promotion, Jeremiah is excited. Where was that for Belly, a woman that you were with for 4 years that you claim to love and that also, I don't know, you've known your entire life and should want to grow and evolve. Anyway, he didn't. He wanted to possess her. And like Conrad Fisher said last episode, she's not a fucking object, Jeremiah having all of the expertise of like a Carmi style From the Bear chef is fucking insane. Because 3 episodes ago, when him and Belly are laying in his dad's house on the air mattress, they are surrounded by pizza boxes, by takeout containers, empty candy bags, all of this garbage, junk food all around them. And you're telling me that he's going to make a watermelon beignet? Why is he acting like he has had years of fucking culinary experience when he's had 6 months from where he has to where he's going? And I'm not saying that you cannot be naturally talented at something, but I am saying the writing was fucking lazy. The writing should have been better. The writing could have gotten us here in a different aspect. The writing could have been so much better for Jeremiah's character. Instead, they decided to give him a character assassination and then rebound that, make him seem like he's somewhat the good guy. None of the dots connected the way that I really wanted them to over the course of the season, except for Belly and Conrad getting together in the end. That's just me. Denise calling Jeremiah out and saying that Jeremiah is obsessed with Conrad is prime content. Loved it. Go feminism. Denise then also saying, I can't believe that Nepo Baby is kissing me. Again, I don't understand this writing. I don't understand. I did not like this. I'm not saying I don't like Denise and Jeremiah together, because I do, but this could have been done so profoundly differently. It could have been done so much better. We didn't need to go through it with Steven to get us here. We didn't need to make Denise this iconic feminist character only to have her be like, I can't believe that Nepo Baby is kissing me. Shut up. You're a tough ass bitch. I know that Jeremiah's got a face card, I guess, when he's got glasses and his hoodies on, but like, girl, he's still a Nepo Baby. Anyway, Jeremiah admitting that he let Belly give up on Paris, and also that he was basically with her because he didn't want to be alone is fine, I guess. Once again, it would have been nice if this conversation unfolded between Jeremiah and Conrad, or Jeremiah and Belly. It would have been nice if this wake-up call was not rooted in something that seems painful, but like finally an admission on Jeremiah's part that Conrad and Belly aren't these two awful people that had feelings for each other that Jeremiah just inserted himself in the middle of from season 1, but that fine, he's at fault for some stuff here, and some of that stuff is that he held Belly back because he didn't want to be alone. Okay, that's fine, I guess. And then Jeremiah finally gets some love from Adam. #aw. Finally getting rid of our daddy issues. Okay, let's talk about the B characters and hot takes. My first hot take, the route they take through Paris is crazy and it makes no sense. I knew I had that somewhere. I said it earlier, but I'll say it again. Taylor tells Steven that she wants a cat, and Steven's like, maybe we should take a beat. No. Then we get one of my favorite lines, but I'm not going to mention it later on, so I'm going to mention it here. Fuck me sideways, you American slut. I want somebody to put that on a t-shirt for me and send it to me. DM me. I'll give you my address. Here's Adam with the champagne. Hope we get that in the movie. Here are my questions. What was the fucking point of Kaylee? What was the point of the storyline? What was the point of having her in the show? What was the point? What was the point? You know that Cardi B meme where she's like, what was the reason? That's how I feel about Kaylee. Okay? Because Jeremiah never finds out, which would have been really nice character growth for Jeremiah, and that would have been really good writing, but that doesn't happen. And then the other thing is, what was the point of John and Laurel? Once again, why was the writing the way that it was? I don't understand. Redbird fucking up the poor and then leaving with Arrivederci. That was really funny to me. I thought that whole scene was really, really funny. And then, once again, what was the reason? Did we just have this whole experience with Lucinda for Steven to have a line in which he was able to say that he didn't want to ask Taylor to move to California because he watched everything that she gave up for her mom? Was that the entire point of this plot line, was to get us to this line? And was there no other writing that we could have had to get us here faster or in a different way? I love the show. I really respect Jenny Han. I really respect what they've done over the course of the 3 seasons. But the writing was really fucking lazy for some of these points and made no sense. And if you have to do as much mental gymnastics to put some of these pieces together, it doesn't click. Just make it easy for your audience. And you have to trust your audience to be smart enough. So I'm not saying you want to like over deliver your plot points on a silver platter in a way that's like, here, do you see, wink, nod, how we're putting these things together? But they should at least make a little bit of sense. I don't understand what the point of Lucinda, Kaylee, or John and Laurel's relationship was. We've gotten to the end of the season. We had 11 episodes. I do not understand the point of those things. If you understand the point of those things, you can let me know. Thank you. All right, let's crack open our burn book where we will look at our superlatives for this episode. The Bold and Bothered Award. This award is strictly for the femme and the furious. It is the quote or the moment that most relays the feminine rage. And it is Taylor, throwing a total Taylor fit over the course of this entire episode. The Shiro Award goes to the baddie who is the most inspiring or the moment that is the most empowering. And this goes to Belly. I choose you of my own free will. The Femme Fatale Award, for the most smash the patriarchy moment of the episode. And it is Denise telling Jeremiah that he is the one that is in fact obsessed with Conrad Fisher. Speak Your Truth Trophy, the best quote or line from this episode. And it is, do you memorize every little thing I've ever said? And the immediate eye contact with the yes. Honorary heartthrob, because I am just a girl, okay? And I want to talk about the most swoon-worthy moments of the episode. And it is in the middle of Dress, the song cuts out, and Conrad Fisher says, I dream about this, you. And then the music picked back up. Literally, it could be my own fucking wedding day. There will never be anything more romantic than that moment. That was sexy. It was hot. It was perfectly timed with the music. And I was gagged as fuck. That was romantic as fuck. I dream about this, you. Okay. Biggest belly flop. It is Adam going to Jeremiah and being like, I'm always proud of you. That should just go without saying. And then being like, maybe I should have said it. Yeah, you think? Maybe you should have fucking not traumatized both of your sons with daddy issues. And then last but not least, Sounds of Summer. This is the best needle drop of the episode. And it goes to Dress by Taylor Swift, hands down. Okay. Thank you for tuning into this week's episode of Femme Furious. I will be back on Tuesday. We are going into our Stranger Things coverage. It will switch over to our series side of the storyboard, our Tuesdays and Fridays. So if you're new here, by the way, Tuesdays are following a series. Fridays tend to be standalone episodes. I started Stranger Things on Fridays throughout September because we have a lot of episodes to get through, and I'm still doing quickies, like bite-sized episodes, going through a recap. So on Tuesday, we'll be back with Stranger Things. It will be a quickie. It will be season 2, episodes 4 through 6. And then Friday, I'll be back with Taylor Swift's new album, Life of a Showgirl. Somewhere in between, I would like to do a Femme Furious fully loaded bonus episode where we cover Man's Best Friend, which is Sabrina Carpenter's new album, Cardi B's new album, Am I the Drama, and Lizzo's new album, I'm Still Smiling. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. Sorry if I fucked that up. I would like to cover all 3 of those because all 3 of them are bangers and have some really good music in there, but Taylor deserves her own episode. I'm not going to lump her in with a bunch of other albums when there's going to be a ton to talk about with Taylor's album in and of itself. So that's sort of what's coming up this week. And then we will continue our Stranger Things coverage. And I will be doing some Paris coverage as I move. And I'm not really sure. We're going to play it by ear. Okay? So thank you so much for listening. I will be back on Tuesday with Stranger Things. And until then, I'm going to try and catch that 5 a.m. train. See you next time.